I wish you good evening, Dunham." The Sergeant now withdrew, leaving Duncan of Lundie to his own thoughts. That they were not altogether disagreeable was to be inferred from the smiles which occasionally covered a countenance hard and martial in its usual expression, though there were moments in which all its severe sobriety prevailed. Half an hour might have passed, when a tap at the door was answered by a direction to enter. A middle-aged man, in the dress of an officer, but whose uniform wanted the usual smartness of the profession, made his appearance, and was saluted as Mr. Muir. "I have come at your bidding to know my fortune," said the quartermaster in a strong Scotch accent, as soon as he had taken the seat which was proffered to him. "To say the truth to you, Major Duncan, this girl is making as much havoc in the garrison as the French did before Ty. I never witnessed so general a rout in so short a time." "Surely, Davy, you don't mean to persuade me that your young and unsophisticated heart is in such a flame after 1 week's ignition? Why, man, this is worse than the affair in Scotland, where it was said the heat within was so intense that it just burnt a hole through your own precious body and left a place for all the lassies to peer in at, to see what the combustible material was worth. You'll have your own way, Major Duncan, and your father and mother would have theirs before you, even if the enemy were in the camp. I see nothing so extraordinary in young people following the bent of their inclinations and wishes. But you've followed yours so often, Davy, that I should think by this time it had lost the edge of novelty. Including that informal affair in Scotland, when you were a lad, you've been married 4 times already." "Only 3, Major, as I hope to get another wife. I've not yet had my number. No, only 3. "I'm thinking, Davy, you don't include the first affair I mentioned, that in which there was no parson." "And why should I, Major? The courts decided it was no marriage, and what more could a man want? The woman took advantage of a slight amorous propensity that may be a weakness in my disposition, perhaps, and inveigled me into a contract which was found to be illegal. If I remember right, Muir, there were thought to be 2 sides to that question in the time of it." "It would be but an indifferent question, my dear Major, that hadn't 2 sides to it, and I've known many that had 3. But the poor woman's dead, and there was no issue, so nothing came of it after all. Then I was particularly unfortunate with my second wife. I say second, Major, out of deference to you, and on the mere supposition that the first was a marriage at all. But first or second, I was particularly unfortunate with Jeannie Graham, who died in the first lustrum, leaving neither chick nor chiel behind her. I do think, if Jeannie had survived, I never should have had turned my thoughts towards another wife. But as she did not, you married twice after her death, and are desirous of doing so a 3rd time." "The truth can never justly be gainsaid, Major Duncan, and I am always ready to avow it. I'm thinking, Lundie, you are melancholy this fine evening?" "No, Muir, not melancholy absolutely, but a little thoughtful, I confess. I was looking back to my own boyish days, when I, the laird's son, and you, the parson's, roamed about our native hills, happy and careless boys, taking little heed to the future, and then have followed some thoughts, that may be a little painful, concerning that future as it has turned out to be." "Surely, Lundie, you do not complain of your portion of it. You've risen to be a major, and will soon be a lieutenant colonel, if letters tell the truth, while I am just 1 step higher than when your honored father gave me my first commission, and a poor deevil of a quartermaster." "And the 4 wives?" "3, Lundie. 3 only that were legal, even under our own liberal and sanctified laws." "Well, then, let it be 3. You know, Davy," said Major Duncan, insensibly dropping into the pronunciation and dialect of his youth, as is much the practice with educated Scotchmen as they warm with a subject that comes near the heart, "you know, Davy, that my own choice has long been made, and in how anxious and hope-wearied a manner I've waited for that happy hour when I can call the woman I've so long loved a wife. And here have you, without fortune, name, birth, or merit, I mean particular merit. Na, dinna say that, Lundie. The Muirs are good blood." "Well, then, without aught but blood, ye've wived 4 times. I tell ye it's but thrice, Lundie. Ye'll weaken old friendship if ye call it 4. "Put it at your own number, Davy, and it's far more than your share. Our lives have been very different, on the score of matrimony, at least; you must allow that, my old friend." "In which do you think has been the gainer, Major, speaking as frankly together as we did when lads?" "Nay, I've nothing to conceal. My days have passed in hope deferred, while yours have passed in—" "Not in hope realized, I give you mine honor, Major Duncan," interrupted the Quartermaster. "Each new experiment I have thought might prove an advantage, but disappointment seems the lot of man. Ah, this is a vain world of ours, Lundie, it must be owned, and in nothing vainer than in matrimony." "And yet you are ready to put your neck into the noose for the 5th time?" "I desire to say it will be but the 4th, Major Duncan," said the Quartermaster positively; then, instantly changing the expression of his face to one of boyish rapture, he added, "But this Mabel Dunham is a rara avis. Our Scotch lassies are fair and pleasant, but it must be owned these colonials are of surpassing comeliness." "You will do well to recollect your commission in blood, Davy. I believe all 4 of your wives. I wish, my dear Lundie, that you be more accurate in your arithmetic. 3 times 1 make 3. "All 3, then, were what might be termed gentlewomen?" "That's just it, Major. 3 were gentlewomen, as you say, and the connections were suitable." "And the 4th being the daughter of my father's gardener, the connection was unsuitable. But have you no fear that marrying the child of a non commissioned officer, who is in the same corps with yourself, will have the effect to lessen your consequence in the regiment?" "That's just been my weakness through life, Major Duncan, for I've always married without regard to consequences. Every man has his besetting sin, and matrimony, I fear, is mine. And now that we have discussed what may be called the principles of the connection, I will just ask if you did me the favor to speak to the Sergeant on the trifling affair." "I did, David, and am sorry to say, for your hopes, that I see no great chance of your succeeding." "Not succeeding! An officer and a quartermaster in the bargain, and not succeed with a sergeant's daughter?" "It's just that, Davy." "And why not, Lundie? Will you have the goodness to answer just that?" "The girl is betrothed. Hand plighted, word passed, love pledged. No, hang me if I believe that either, but she is betrothed." "Well, that's an obstacle, it must be avowed, Major, though it counts for little if the heart is free." "Quite true, and I think it probable the heart is free in this case, for the intended husband appears to be the choice of the father rather than of the daughter." "And who may it be, Major?" asked the Quartermaster, who viewed the whole matter with the philosophy and coolness acquired by use. "I do not recollect any plausible suitor that is likely to stand in my way." "No, you are the only plausible suitor on the frontier, Davy. The happy man is Pathfinder." "Pathfinder, Major Duncan!" "No more nor any less, David Muir. Pathfinder is the man, but it may relieve your jealousy a little to know that, in my judgment at least, it is a match of the father's rather than of the daughter's seeking." "I thought as much!" exclaimed the Quartermaster, drawing a long breath, like one who felt relieved. "It's quite impossible that with my experience in human nature—" "Particularly woman's nature, David. You will have your joke, Lundie. Let who will suffer. But I did not think it possible I could be deceived as to the young woman's inclinations, which I think I may boldly pronounce to be altogether above the condition of Pathfinder. As for the individual himself, why, time will show." "Now tell me frankly, Davy Muir," said Lundie, stepping short in his walk, and looking the other earnestly in the face with a comical expression of surprise, that rendered the veteran's countenance ridiculously earnest, "do you really suppose a girl like the daughter of Sergeant Dunham can take a serious fancy to a man of your years and appearance, and experience, I might add?"